On this blistering August afternoon, creek is clear, pinched as it falls over dam. A breach on the north side, large pool created along the bank, just across from the rapids on the south side, downstream from the no swimming sign. Through the thick brush along the south bank, rush of water, dance of rabbits can be heard. Clearing reveals something else is going on. There's 100 of them, maybe more, along the north bank in the pool of the creek. Browns, yellows, whites, light and dark. Philly accents blend in with sound of diversity, languages of Africa, Central America, South America, Caribbean, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Arabic. Parents hold toddlers close, soaking. Laughter rises from the cool water of the creek. Teens splash about. On the beach of sediment under sycamore, barbecues flavor air, a spontaneous international food festival. They have descended into the valley of Pennypack, find respite on a hot summer day, as all those who came before them, just east of the no swimming sign. No Swimming, a poem in the collection of tonight's guest, G. Emil Reutter, of his book Until Next Time. Good evening and welcome. My name is Charles Carr, and welcome to Philly Loves Poetry, a collaboration between the Moonstone Arts Center of Philadelphia and PhillyCam. The focus of our program is to give our viewers and our listeners the experience of the rich culture of poetry in the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding area. And tonight we have a favorite son. I call him a favorite son of Philadelphia, G. Emil Reutter. G is a writer of poems and stories. 18 collections of poetry and fiction have been published. Most recently, the book I read from, Until Next Time, which selected poems over a 20-year period, 1990 to 2022, which was published in 2023 by Alien Buddha Press. G's latest chapbook, Glint Down the Shore, is published by Moonstone Press, and it'll be, I think it is released or it will be released very soon. Something that G does not mention in his bio is the fact that he and his partner, Diane Sams Guarnieri, started and published a remarkable literary journal titled the Fox Chase Review, and for several years had a reading series in the Fox Chase Review. Now, recently, I guess in the last 2-3 years, have started North of Oxford, another excellent literary journal, and they have in the past year started a reading series at the library, but I think it might be moving. George and Diane have partnered to advance the appreciation of poetry, poets, and other artists. I really want to emphasize that. This program is called Philly Loves Poetry, and these two people have shown a lot of love to poetry and poets. So welcome, G. It's really great to have you finally. So where I want to start is really in a one line from a poem of yours entitled "From Eating Raw Meat." It's raw, and the quote is, "I stand on the rubble that is left of the American dream." And as I read that line, and I'm looking at it in the context of your whole collection in there, I think it really embodies so much. And I sent to you this word that was invented by French poet Charles Baudelaire. It's called a flaneur. And the flaneur is really an archetype of someone who immerses themselves in their own environment. For him, it was really the rise of industrial Europe. And for you, as the flaneur, you're really the the guy who's really trying to preserve that memory of what was Philadelphia, industrial Philadelphia. People don't realize that this city was one of the leading industrial manufacturing cities, if not in the country, in the world. We were a leading textile manufacturer in the world. Uh, and but you have preserved so much of this in the poems, even though much of that has gone. And in one of your poems, it's called Walking. And very much the flaneur of you, flaneur, comes out. And I'll quote this: "In this walk, a fresh look of every day, of the spectral, of the kaleidoscopic." So can you talk to us about this focus that you have on this really effort in this book? And I've heard you read in other venues about this forgotten Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia that you remember, and perhaps at 80 years old, I remember, but is vanishing. So talk about that.
Well, a lot of those poems were written in real time. The collection spans 30 years. And you see a lot of things. Something as simple as driving down Glenwood to Broad, and then you realize there's once a flexible flyer factory there. Or Erie Steel. Even Joe Fraser's Gems. Now, I don't even know if it's still a furniture store, but they made it a furniture store. Or the utter collapse of North Philadelphia Station at one time, which is now a shopping mall, essentially. And these are things that you see, or I haven't really written much about it, but when Connie Mack Stadium departed, now it's Deliverance Evangelistic Church, and they have a supermarket there. And so that's a positive amongst all the negative. Mm-hmm. But there's just things that you see. Sometimes you see things out of the corner of your eye, and it just kind of inspires you. You can just see something. Like I had written a story one time, and it was based on being on a train, and I was going through Maryland, and I saw a light over the top of a car in a parking garage. That's all it took. And I wrote a story. It had nothing to do with the light. But the story takes place in a parking garage. So you just see different things.
Absolutely. So there's another poem, and once again, I say all these really kind of encapsulate so much. This poem is called 16 Miles. And what you're trying to capture here is this train ride from Darby Creek to Pequessing Creek. And we're, in this poem, we're jettisoned through all that you see in this in an instant. But you end the poem by, and I'll quote, talking about your fellow commuters on this train that you are on. They sit there, they sit not noticing, in designer suits and shoes, tap on computers, iPods, over wine, beer, or coffee, like those that came before them. They are not concerned about what's left behind. And so, why do you feel it's so important, that this what's left behind is brought back to life?
I don't know if it can actually be brought back to life, but the fact that it was left behind. And there's generations of people that were left behind. There were thousands and thousands of jobs that disappeared, and it had an effect on the neighborhoods. And these folks, they either live in town or they live in the suburbs, and they couldn't care less. And they go on their merry way, they make their money, and it doesn't come back. That's what I was trying to point out. The old GE plant in Southwest Philly is now Amazon warehouse that I'm not sure ever opened. But all those jobs are gone. And whether they come back through Amazon, I don't know, but we're still not making anything, which I think Biden's trying to do. So we'll see how he works out.
Another thing that I really saw and appreciated in this book of poems is your attention to detail. And when I say detail, like it's architectural detail. Like 30th Street Station, you break down so wonderfully, and so you have and you do it in a very short space of the page. You get the essential things in there, and what anybody that's been in 30th Street Station would say, yes, that's very much an homage to that grandeur of 30th Street Station. So that is something that is preserved, but the way you describe it, the other part, and this is kind of flipping ahead, is that you have all these poems, what I'll call about the rusting of the Rust Belt of Philadelphia and the surrounding area. But then against that, you have these wonderful, lush, pastoral poems, I'll call them, about the nature that is surrounding all this rust. Whether it's Pennypack Park or it's a creek, a poem I just read, or it's something else like that. And it's not only that the focus changes, but the language changes. There's a certain passion. There's a passion in all your poems, but there's a certain passion there for nature that is, and the way you balance it against the industrial world, it's like this is a refuge for us. This is kind of our savior that we have, Fairmount Park or Pennypack Park or whatever.
A lot of the parks were developed in the early 1900s because of water. There were water projects, and if any of the parks you go through, like Wissahickon, Tacony, Pennypack, you'll see at times exposed sewer covers where there's like a castle-like structure with a sewer on top. But the parks were generated to take care of the water from the city and for future development. Mm-hmm. So the greed at the time of the developers aided us in having such a beautiful park system in Philadelphia. Pennypack itself is larger than Central Park in New York, let alone including Fairmont and Wissahickon. And I mean, we're really blessed with these places, and you can find respite in them. And you can see things that you don't really see from the road when you go through there. So,
and once again, I'm coming back to one of your poems, and the poem is called "Before the Frost." You let the reader know, I work the garden the way I work a poem, adjusting, crafting it just right. And you also later on in a poem use the word sketch. And I really feel, I almost picture in some of these poems that you're writing, you're sitting there with a pad and a piece of charcoal and you're sketching. But what you're doing is sketching with words, with
right.
with vocabulary. So, I've mentioned this, about Flaner and about Baudelaire, but when I read these poems, I think of Philip Levine. I think of Charles Simic. So what poets really inspire you in your work, or have in your work?
Well, it goes back. It all starts, of course, with me with Whitman. Then it goes to Sandburg and Vachel Lindsay and Cullen and Langston Hughes. We could jump to Retke and Wright and Hugo and Mary Oliver and Brooks. And it just kind of, I enjoy realism. We had a program we did at Manor College one time. So, and we were older, of course, than the kids that were there. And there was a young black kid in the back. And we were talking about how you preserve your poems. And he was using the cloud. And I said, well, you know what you need to do is you need to put them on paper. Because the cloud could go away. Mm-hmm. He said, what do you mean? I looked up something on the phone. I said, I want you to read this for me. And he read the poem, and they all went nuts clapping. Do you know what poem he read?
What?
Chicago. Huh. It was as if it was just written yesterday. And to me, that's the enduring power of a poem. It's about a different time, a different place. Different things occur than occur now, but you could feel the passion in the writing of the poem. And to me, that's the most important thing that there is.
Are there, you mentioned a lot of poets are there poets, new poets, that you're impressed with that kind of reflect your style? And not that you look for poets that reflect. Are there poets that
Well, this
other
is
people need to know about?
well, this is another dead poet. It's Jim Harrison.
Hmm.
He's an excellent poet, and I would urge anyone that has a computer to go look at North of Oxford. It's North of Oxford WordPress, and look at who we publish. We publish a lot of really good poets,
Indeed.
and that's because our poetry editor is so good. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that Diane Soms has had an enormous impact on my poetry.
And it's up on the screen right there, North of Oxford. And yeah, well, Fox Chase Review had some really great, and I mean, we're not talking about local poets. You were kind of almost you were international.
Well, Fox Chase Review is international from the get-go, and we brought poets from all over the East Coast into Philadelphia, and we had annual festival, Poets on the Porch, I believe you read there, and poets at Pennypack, and then P alliterations. We had poets in the park at Lions Park, and then we had a regular reading series, Three Sisters and Ryers, and we stopped that. It kind of ran itself out, and in 2016 I started doing book reviews at North of Oxford, and I knew it would only be a matter of time before Diane would want to publish poetry again. Of course she did. So we publish poets from all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah, it's a fabulous. You guys do a great job with that.
Thank you.
Did with the Fox Chase Review, and now you're doing it again with North of Oxford. One thing I also wanted to ask you about your style, and I might be really off the wall on this, but on some of your poems, there's that term, just the facts. I just need the facts. And I know you were, a police officer, an officer at one time. And sometimes I'm thinking, as I was reading some of those poems, George is just hitting on the essential details. Is that an accurate representation of something that influenced you, that you in writing a report, an incident report, you don't use a lot of hyperbole, but you get right to the point and the essence. And a lot of your poems have that, but they're glorious because they do that. They don't have a lot of modifiers.
I think it's one played off the other. I've written all my life. I've written juvenilia when I was younger. Of course, not a lot of that exists anymore. And I was always an observer of people and of things. And I think that lent itself to my job, and my job lent itself to furthering my writing ability. I remember I had a guy I worked with, found out I was a poet, and cops are brutal people with each other. And he came in to the office and he said to me, "I heard you're a poet." And I said, "Well, before you start, if you say another word, I'm going to write an ode about you."
Uh-huh.
And he said, "No problem." And he never said another word.
Oh.
So that stopped that.
But is that an accurate representation?
It played off each other.
Okay.
I mean, I was always observing things. So when I got the job, it was just kind of natural because you tend to see things other people don't see. Mm-hmm. And poets tend to see things other people don't see.
Exactly.
So they kind of played off each other.
You were raised in Bristol.
Levittown.
Okay. Very unique community. A lot of history behind Levittown.
I got to stick up for one point about Levittown. The neighborhood I grew up in, we had blacks, Puerto Ricans, Asian Pacific Islanders, Jewish folks, Catholic folks, and at the time it was built, it had this section called Low Orchard, had one way in and one way out. Mm-hmm. Now it has two. But as opposed to what you normally hear about the pre-50s thing, that didn't occur where I grew up. In fact, I worked with a guy at the steel mill that I grew up with that I never knew he was Puerto Rican until I worked with him at the mill.
Uh-huh.
I heard him speaking Spanish. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm Puerto Rican. You didn't know?" I said, "Nah, I didn't know." So that working class background too, because it was a mixture of blue collar steel workers, commuters going to New York from Levittown. Some people bought their houses for $100 down and $75 a month. Those houses now are going for $300,000-400,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a unique place to grow up. But I came down to the city in '83. I went back briefly in the late '90s, and then I came back in 2007 and never left because I love Philadelphia. I love the pulse of the city. If I could have been born here, I would have been born here. It's just a good place to live.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing, I've talked about this, the preservation role that your poems, and there are probably people that are sitting out there say, "Well, I never knew that was there. I never knew we had that," and I talked about this fascination and this love that you have for the natural beauty, and then there's these very wonderful love poems. And it's amazing to me that this book of poems, or any book, the poetry that you write, you know, kind of transverses all of that, and really does it flawlessly. But I love
Appreciate
this.
that.
I love those poems. I'll call them the love poems. It's like they're shorter. They're short. You don't. That's the great. I think that's what I also like about your poetry. You know, it's very accessible, and it's very compact. But these poems, the poems that you have, these love poems, once again, that steers away from this style that that see what I was talking about on this train ride to. You're standing, looking at the loved one, and you know reminiscing and making a statement about what you're feeling in here. And I really admire that.
I think it's important for a poet to not let anyone put them in a box. You have to write what you feel when you feel it. Otherwise, if you let them put you in a box, which poetry is notorious for, put people in boxes, that stifles your growth. And I believe you have to grow. And I mean, I'm a different person than I was 15 years ago because I have the ability to grow. And I guess we all want to grow to become enlightened, to do the right thing, to have our family succeed. And you have to be open to things to be able to do that. So I think that's a big part of it. I have a piece about myself now that I didn't have before.
Saying this, talking about these, what I'll call them the love poems, there are poets that are not comfortable in sharing that part of themselves and putting that out there to the world. They have a specific focus, and as you say, you call it the box. This is my thing. I don't write about my private life. I don't write about my passion for someone because I don't want to put it out there, for the world to see.
Isn't it all how you put it out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's how you put it out there, and look what they're missing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. George, in your new book, which I'll hold it up. I don't know if our camera can see it. Glint, Down the Shore Poems. And I know you're going to read some of them. Talk about how that came about and what you're trying to accomplish with that new chapbook.
Well, Diane and I go down the shore a lot. We also go to nature reserves down the shore too, and we walk. And that's really why I know so much about the park systems, because we walk all over the parks. We hike. And we went down to Cape May. We've made day trips down to LBI because I don't know if you're aware, it's hard to afford to do anything on LBI now because it's all built up. But I remember LBI in the 70s when it was fishing shacks and small homes. But that's all gone now. So I had this inkling about doing a book about the shore, and I had some older poems I put together, and Diane said, "You can't do that." So then we came up, we talked, and I started doing this, and she took the picture of the cover, and that's about Holgate, and at Holgate, if you go left onto the beach, you're on a township beach. If you go right, you're in the Forsyth Nature Reserve.
Uh-huh.
And you can walk the whole thing all the way down. And if you get to a certain distance, it looks like you can walk across Little Lake Harbor Inlet right into Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
And I compare that to being the Emerald City without the poppy fields.
Uh-huh.
And it's not that wide where the Beat Bay and the sea would meet. It's just simply beautiful. I read some history about ship bottoms, so I wrote a poem called Bell in the Bottom. Bell in the Bottom comes from a terrible shipwreck where the men died freezing to death in the ropes and in the water. And this guy named Tucker, who Tuckerton, New Jersey is named after, came over and heard something tap in the hole, and he carved a hole in and pulled a girl out. And apparently when they got back, she went to the beach and put a mark on the beach and walked away, and no one ever saw her again. But that's how Ship Bottom, New Jersey got its name.
Oh. So I know Holgate. My wife and I usually go down there in the off season. Her family went there every year to vacation. I think it's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Probably, as she said, because she went there as a child, so much has changed, just as you have observed. And once again, we're talking about change of the shore, change in Philadelphia. Landscape has changed so much. So this is a wonderful, conversation, but people want to hear your poems.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Charles.
For coming. I think this is great to finally get you here, and I think our audience is going to love to hear your poems.
Well, thank you. Philadelphia. I dream of my city of Philadelphia, of a time when peace will come to its streets. I see the people of this city, a city I love in white, black, yellow, tan, brown. I celebrate the people of my city, the good people who love their families, aspire to the same goals of peace, comfort, love. This is not an easy city, a city named for love. We have overcome resistance through centuries, for this is a city of immigrants, blending in over time, who chart their own course, strengthen neighborhoods as their culture becomes part of the fabric of this city that I love. And in this city I dream of, this city I love, I'm a realist, know of the hard scrabble neighborhoods, have walked its tough streets, survived a few fights here and there, and yet in every neighborhood there is hope and love and people who dream as I do of a time when peace will come to its streets. I have sung my poems. I have sung to end the violence. I have sung of its beauty. I have sung of its people, and I sing now for my city, my Philadelphia. I sing to the people of Philadelphia. I sing from Broad and Glenwood, 68th and Woodbine, Rawn in Oxford, Cotman in Frankfort, Benner in Torresdale, 10th in Washington, 70th in Woodland, 52nd in Lancaster, Ridge and Ripka. From all the streets of the city, I sing of my dream, that peace will come to our streets, and I raise my hands to the sky and sing my poems, for I have hope for Philadelphia. "30th Street Station. Here on the west bank of the Schuylkill, Shaw's 8 stories of steel rise above train tracks and Bridgewater. Encased cathedral windows and travertine walls catwalk across porticos of classical columns. Sun streams in. Hancock's Archangel rises from Tennessee marble, A soldier in arms looks to coffered ceiling, rests between Art Deco chandeliers. Gilded ornament columns glisten above dark wooden benches where signs of blue lead to tracks of steel as the destination board clicks and clacks on train's arrival. In the North Hall, aged brass images of Atterbury and Gibbs and Thompson keep eye on commuters rushing to and fro. And embedded on the west wall, bitter century-old spirit sings out in the grunts of oxen, horses, of ornate carriages, pioneers, weary mother of children, the youngest carrying an airship into the future. And on the concourse they open and close books, newspapers, tap on keyboards, whisper sweet nothings into lovers' ears, make business deals, greet family, travel in all directions in this last great temple of what were once the railroad gods. And by the way, there's an outfit called Oatmeal that's building a clickety-clack Solari board, and they're trying to get it returned to 30th Street instead of the computerized version down there now. So I'm kind of happy I make reference to the click and clacks of the board. Let's see. Long-legged Larry. He was always walking, arms flaying as one bad leg dragging, face of a well-worn baseball mitt, blue eyes blazing, wild beard catching the wind, and uncut hair sprang about like a bad mattress spring. Up Cotman to Central, over to Oxford, then down Ron to Dungan, back to Cotman and over again each day. Long-legged Larry walked always, looking back to see if what he was walking away from was catching up. He never spoke to anyone, and if you spoke to him, he looked away and back over his shoulder. Probably hadn't showered in years. His jacket, shirt, pants, socks all threadbare as the soles of his shoes were pockmarked. It was a cold January morning. I walked along Cotman Avenue just past a small grove of leafless trees. There, nestled among them in the park, was a 2nd District squad car and a car from the ME's office. Curled up against the trunk of one of the trees like a baby in a womb was long-legged Larry. He wouldn't be walking anymore. Wouldn't have to look back to see who was following him. There, curled up under that tree, whatever was chasing him had caught up with him. So my next poem is a baseball poem without being baseball. It's about a fellow that hangs out in the right field entrance of Citizens Bank. It's called The Instrumentalist. I never saw him in the ballpark, his stocky frame topped with a straw hat. He, the unofficial greeter, played Take Me Out to the Ball Game on a trumpet older than he was. On the corner across from the right field gate before and after the game, his gray, bearded cheeks would puff out until the last fan passed, and again at the end of the game, he said goodbye with the Saints. The only acknowledgement he gave was when a dollar bill slowly floated into the ever-present bucket on the ground in front of him. There for the series, there for the lost seasons, always played as if it was his last performance. He played here on his corner and was great as Nichols, Armstrong, Gillespie. All those games, his audience of thousands in constant motion, dropping dollars into his bucket. Sometimes the paper sticks. So I'm going to go to a different type of poem. This is called Saturday Night Sinners. Troubadours sing songs whose lyrics have long lost their meaning. Tina circles Dave on the dance floor. She eyes up Johnny at the bar, who chugs another beer, wondering where his wife is. The band sings Born to Run. Tina laughs, changes the lyric to Born to Jog or Walk Really Fast. Dave scores a blonde and leaves. Tina saddles up next to Johnny, listening to the Cheat on Me blues, waiting for him to take her where she wants to go. Sunday morning comes. As Dave picks the tinted blue hair from his pillow, Johnny and his wife enter the church. Tina walks by and winks as Johnny notices the pastor eyeing up his wife. Dave runs in, sitting down, not noticing the blue-haired lady, till she places her hand on his knee. Cringing, knowing he can't get away. And here they all sit, Saturday night sinners and Sunday morning forgiveness. Stormy night. Sandsome street covered in ice, winds travel down Chestnut like a train passing through a tunnel. Lights reflect from store windows and icy sidewalks, flashing caution signs in the midst of the storm. Drunk lawyers stumble from pubs with young girls in tight skirts and heels as the street guy in the corner sleeps. Traffic signal changes from green to yellow to red as cabs slide through intersection. I watch as you walk to your car, miss you as ice patters against my shoulders. So I don't know how prevalent it is where you're at, Charles, but there's some places in the Northeast where the girls wear pajama bottoms to the bars.
You know, I see that not with girls, but I see it in, Center City with guys, and in the morning walking around with
No, this is going out at night with pajama bottoms.
pajama bottoms. So I've seen that, but not with women. But hey,
There you go. This is called Know Where You Belong. He's a tough guy at the bar drinking whiskey, Pabst Blue Ribbon, his hairless head covered with a green Jeff cap. His sweater screams, belly lays on his thighs. He can't see his feet. Watches the young girls in pajama bottoms with guys who have no clue. He wants them, wants the girls to notice him, wants the guys to fight him in this arena of white trash. He is king. Girls rub on him, he buys them drinks until he grabs one, gets slapped, laughed at, gets his ass kicked, dethroned, his money split among them, home, no joy. At 60, he doesn't have it right. He never did. This is called In Costume. Millennials are in overdrive as they walk this hip area of Chestnut just before Halloween. There are pirates, doms, and subs, angels, hot pant hookers, guys in drag, even a homeless guy. Young and drunk, noise they make is louder than the traffic they stop when crossing the street. Round after round they buy and all drink up. As evening turns to early morn, they make their way home, stagger and hold on to each other till they ascend to their converted factory lofts. The party continues on except for one, who staggers and turns into an alley. Eyes blurry, belly full of booze. He sits on a grate, pulls up his blanket, and dreams of what could have been. We're going to take another little turn here for a different type of poem. It's called Farmers, Trains, Queens, and Clowns. With each step, floorboards sing out of tune, mice dance in walls, spiders spin webs as the sun sifts through broken blinds, glassless remnants of windows. Spindleless banister leads lurching steps to an attic that no longer contains family treasures. Bats hang from the rafters. Wind whistles through joists as the house wobbles and front porch bows. A vacant rocker sways, the last shutter falls to the ground. He is in the garden on the north side of the house, mingled in the ragweed, searching for his tomato plants, carrots that voided this place years ago. She floats between the broken clotheslines, searches for clothespins that fell from the now bottomless canvas bag that hangs on a pole. They meet in the rutted driveway, fall into each other, disappear from sight. A lone hound lays on the porch, his coat fading, his howls unheard. Down the driveway, posted along the state highway, is a for sale sign covered in wildflowers, its print not viewable and fading. A man with one eye stands in the highway. His left arm hangs loosely from its socket. He stares as cars pass through him. I want to go to heaven and dance with virgins, leave this hell behind. I want to live in paradise, sing with angels. I want to go to heaven, but they won't let me in. Sun sets slowly in crimson sky. Autumn moon glows as evening lays down. He kneels on the cold stone floor in a frigid stone house, whips his back with leather, asks for forgiveness that his corrupted prayer will not grant. He stands, looks into the courtyard where heads are spiked. A woman is stoned. A man loses his left hand. His prayers unfulfilled. He returns to the floor. It is more mud than water. Green foam grows along the banks. Carp float sideways next to legless frogs. Naked trees, bark peeling, tilt, pull away from soil. He struts about the camp, barks orders to those who hate him, glows like the brightest star in his constellation. She nests adjacent to the boulder and tends to scratches, runs her hand through matted hair and straightens her torn garment. Could I be queen when you are gone or broken? He comes to me, laughs at you, who lays without legs and spits on your corpse. He cuts his wrist the wrong way, pulls the trigger on a gun with no rounds, jumps out the window, falls 2 floors, bounces off a canopy, lands on an evergreen. His red nose falls as he runs down the street in big floppy shoes. A tin horn rests in the blackened ballast, entrails stretch along the lines of gleaming metal, a hand that will never reach out again, a foot with nothing to support, a face without skull, eyes rest on spikes of metal. The naked man saunters along terrazzo floors of the concourse in search of a mate. No one notices. He walks out the door in the January's cold. His spear shrinks into his loins as he covers it with his hands, hides in a bush till they take him away. Sun shines through station canopy, silhouetting him as he lay on a bench, arms outstretched, duffel bag on ground. Thousands of people board in D-train all morning pass by him as his placid skin highlights purple lips and eyes. I'm waiting for a train. It's late again. I'm traveling to nowhere in a hurry to arrive. I hear the whistle blow, turn and watch it come round the bend. I'm on the train to nowhere, and I'm not coming back again. So in that vein, this is called Running with the Moon. He ran the night, his tangled wisp of a beard locked to his chin, brown eyes panicked as each muscle in his face tightened. Bald head glimmered under moon's light. His gait unbalanced, he steadied himself with a dogwood cane, his bones clicking and clacking with each step, his jaw locked in a painful grimace. Around each corner, down each alley, he made his way by darkened windows and flickering bulbs of overhead lights. With each stride, the rumbling sound of a freight train pierced the air. His stride quick till he reached the embankment, leaped, landed on the single track as the horn of the engine sounded. The mighty freight train passed through him. He tumbled under boxcars, tankers, flat cars, along steel tracks until the dull steel wheels grinding and snapping until 130 cars passed. He faded into the berm, blended into the excess ballast until the next full moon when he would run again.
Could you stop here for a minute? Can we just have a focus on G and him reading? There we go. Okay.
Flannel, jeans, and Timberlands. Silver crown clipped atop your head, dressed in flannel and jeans and Timberlands on your feet. On this late Saturday afternoon, you simply say to me, "Take me to the river." We ride the flat land and rises of Vaughan past homes of brick and stone, through business districts, cross 6 lanes of boulevard, pass by little city, travel through village of Holmesburg. Just off State Road, we turn left onto a small driveway bordered by a wall of stone, where once sawmills and steel mills dominated the view. Now just a lot for cars for auction. We arrive to expansive green of athletic fields to our left and the glinting waters of the Delaware to our right. We walk the peninsula where a large gazebo sits, take in the smell of the river, observe a plump of geese meddling with a raft of wood ducks. Gulls are busy hunting as we walk the trail along the river, pass by fishermen on the banks, pass by couples on benches. Note the catbirds and sparrows darting about. We inhale and exhale the open space. Freedom by the river. We arrive at the northern meadow, a sanctuary of wildlife and quiet. We pass the frog pond as butterflies dart about, songbirds sing in wild waist-high grass, and as we reach the pennypack where it drops into the Delaware, eagles come into view, roosting in a distant tree. It's here we take a break, sit by the creek, in the solitude of quiet and nature. Yet it is interrupted from time to time by whoosh of trains passing to the west and the pop-pop of the range to the north, a reminder of the city we live in. And as we walked through the meadow back into the park, there in the western horizon, the colors of sunset and sky causes us to pause, look upon its beauty, painted by a master above this park in a city along the Delaware. So there's an artist called Levin who built sculptures in Pennypack Park, and one's Thoreau's hut, one's 3 benches, and the other's actually a bird blind. So this is called sitting. We walk the trail above the valley of the Pennypack. Path is marked with imprints of human, animal traffic, mountain bikes, and dried mud of the path as temporary sculptures in memory of those who have passed through. Our walking stick gives balance as we approach a small set of steps carved into the ground, held in place by cedar timbers. Jeer of a blue jay echoes as does hoarse high-pitched notes of 2 downy woodpeckers, as well as the continual chorus of a crew of sparrows. We descend the steps to find Levin's 3 benches, known as sitting benches by locals, sturdy locust construction capped by stainless steel. 2 are 9 foot high. Each face each other, and in the center another 6'4". We each take a seat on a 9-footer. Legs dangle as if suspended in mid-air just above the drop into the valley. We have become small, speak in hushed voices, yield to the songs of those who call this home. A family of white-tailed deer trot the path behind us as a peregrine falcon coasts above treetops. A lone rabbit hops past us. Red fox takes notice, flees into the underbush. And our quietness, contemplativeness, consumes us on the 3 benches on the summit of the Pennypack. So back in the day when I got my first job, they didn't have all these landscape guys running around with fancy trucks and everything. The guy that cut rich people's lawn usually had a beat-up Ford 150, a couple of trash barrels in the back with old lawnmowers. So this is a little thing about the guy that gave me my first job. It's called Lawnmower Man. It was my first job. Worked for this guy who had bulging biceps, huge forearms, had an old Ford 150 with 4 mowers, barrels in the bed, pushing mowers for 12 hours on hot summer days, pushing those mowers over rich folks' lawns who watched from their windows, called him by his trade name, Lawnmower Man. At the end of each day, when the final lawn was cut, he would hand the 4 of us a crisp $10 bill. I worked with the Lawnmower Man for a month, pushed mower over wet and dry grass, loaded the barrels 20 lawns a day until I broke my big toe. He told me I was of no use anymore, dropped him at a gas station, handed me a 5 and a dime, and told me to call my folks to pick me up. I rarely saw him cutting grass as he labored unnoticed by many, but over the years I'd see him at his spot selling flowers on Easter and Mother's Day, working 12-hour days, and when I spoke to him, he called me Broken Toe. Asked how I was, wished me good luck, and handed me flowers for my mom. One Easter I pulled up to a spot, Ford 150 parked, flowers on the ground, but he wasn't there. I asked where he was. They said he was gone, heart attack, shoveling someone else's snow. So after all those years, I only knew the man who gave me my first job as Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, I love those characters because we've all, in one way or another, met up with them some point in our life, especially him, because I had a job early on in landscaping. It was a little more sophisticated than that, but nonetheless, it was about the same amount of money. But these characters that you bring back to life in these poems, we know them. We've passed them.
I didn't see him again until I was 18. And I walked up and he looked at me and said, "Hey, Broken Toe." I only worked for him for a month, so I thought that was impressive. So I'm going to go on now to another poem called Patchwork Quilt. Pieces of our lives scattered as wind-swept leaves of orange, yellow, brown, and long ago storms, woven together in a patchwork quilt of those who chose to stay behind or long ago departed. Under full moon, stars of dark sky until break of dawn of sun streams blue of sky, we rest under trees' canopy in quiet of Sunday morning. We share our joys, we share our loss, we share our stories, we share our thoughts. Within this Sunday morning, we sing our poems of longing, we sing our poems of past, we sing our poems of love, and the sun reaches its summit in the sky, a chorus of songbirds sings with us. Memories are just memories, and dreams can sometimes be real. We search for rainbows in overcast sky. We find the last yellow rose before the frost. We watch bud of conehead as it opens. We see geranium's final burst of color. We breathe in fragrance of mums. Withered leaves fall as rain upon us, as crisp air forecast early season flurries. With each exhale, we see our breath. With each glance, we change as reflected in our lives lived from black and white to Kodachrome to panorama, and we know there are no retakes in life. We share our joys, we share our loss, we share our stories, and we share our thoughts. So I'm going to turn now to a couple poems from Glint. I think I have enough time for 3. And then I have one closing poem. So maybe I'll just do 2.
Yeah, we have about another 5 minutes, I believe.
Well, we'll do these 2, and then I'll do the last one. Beach Avenue, and this is the first poem of the chapbook Glint. We walked the beach where presidents once walked, our footsteps erased by swash as we make our way along the shore, much the way the presidents did, pass by jetties, warning flags wave. Across the berm, Beach Avenue lined with homes from another era. Another time, kites fly in September breeze, artists paint along the promenade as wannabe singers strum guitars, pass by empty beach chairs as their previous occupants wade into the Atlantic. The sun is bright, not a cloud in the sky, as often the horizon, sea, and sky meld into one. Late autumn, Anglesey. Sun dips below western horizon, full beaver moon. I had to start that over. Sun dips below western horizon, full beaver moon rises, blood red as if on fire, shells scattered as shredded pearls, ocean bulges, whitecaps sing, misty as tide rolls in, drags out, fold and unfold, slowing down and inward, breeze south to north, gentle as a mother caressing a baby, yet cold as witch's grip. It is in the now of the low roar of the ocean, meeting land far from the urban beats of life. There is a strange quiet lurking under the roar, and if you ponder it, you can hear the earth sing as it rotates around the sun, as the moon directs notes of currents. Of course, Anglesey became North Wildwood. Holgate. Golden brown sand on the edge of the world, ocean bulges, swirls at whitecaps, curling, roaring, spraying along beach, batters this narrow stretch of protected land resting between bay and sea. In the distance, Atlantic City's skyline is Emerald City without poppy fields, as if we would walk across inlet onto the ocean, into the city as sun glint reflects off high-risers and water as light up and light down. And I got one to finish with.
Great.
I am born of nobility. I am born of nobility, of noble parents of the streets of Highbridge, aged in the tract homes of Levittown. I am their son. They could have done better. I am of the nobility of kitchens and car washes, of factories and mills, of railroads. My hands have felt the heat of furnaces, dirt packed under nails, scars on hands and knees, small burn mark on the face. I have known great courage and great fear, great success and great failure. I am born of noble parents. I am born of nobility. I have worked in hot water, hot weather, and cold weather to chilled bones. I have worked with scrub brushes, bricks, shovels, and jackhammers, with badges and cuffs, and at times with muscle. I have been loved and have loved, hated and have hated, rose to the top of the mountain and fell into the valleys. I have rejoiced and grieved, know the great beauty of ugliness of mankind. I am born of noble parents. I am born of nobility of the good and gracious parents. not the nobility of aristocrats, but of true noblemen and women of the working and middle class who have felt the dirt of the earth in their hands, built homes and cities and worked the long hours, of the noble people of the Reuters, Halpins, Smiths, and Loudons, of truck drivers, transit workers, paper cutters, house cleaners, cops, railway workers, soldiers, sailors, politicians, lovers of literature, lovers of life. I am born of the nobility of the working and middle class. I am born of nobility. I am their son. I have done the best I can. Imprint of the past upon me, I leave the past behind me. Jettison the baggage and hold the love good and near. I honor those in my lineage, know from where I have come. I am born of noble parents. I am a writer of poems and stories.
That is really glorious. And George, you are noble. Your poems are nobility,
Thank you.
and you've given nobility to this city.
Thank you.
You really, and on behalf of just a person that's raised here and lived here for 80 years, I appreciate that. It's very unique, and it's so I would recommend to anybody. Don't have to be from Philadelphia. You can be from any city, because you'll recognize it. Is to get Until Next Time, and also the most recent book, Glint, Down the Shore Poems. So, George, thank you very much. I mean,
Thank you, Charles,
it
for
was
having me.
fantastic reading.
It was nice
I
to
really
be here with you and Sergio.
Yeah, yep. Really great. But I like that last one. I did, of course, read that. And I myself, I guess in the last 2 years, have you ever used that about my heritage, about my family? And I really feel that now. And thank you for giving me that term, because I feel I'm really born of the ability of people that were good people, honest people, hardworking people. And that's the nobility of it all.
That's what you have to remember.
Yes, absolutely. And a wider family is funny. I just recently received a death notice, or not obituary, of my grandfather. And I knew this was true, but he was one of the moving forces in the organized labor movement in the 20s. And he was in it for like 35 years.
Wow.
And he was a plasterer, and he was instrumental in starting the Plasters Union. So it's talking about nobility and hardworking people. We both come from that nobility. But what you say in these poems, what you write in these poems, gives nobility to poems, gives nobility to writing poems about these places that you have been. So I very much appreciate it.
Thank you so
and
much.
I'm sure
Charles.
anybody does. And on I can't wait to read the whole of Glint. It'll really be wonderful. So, we're in our 8th season here at Philly Loves Poetry. And this is only made possible by Moonstone, because the publisher of George's books and other books. We have readings, about 100 a year, 300 poets that have an opportunity to bring their work to the public. So I ask those people that are looking in to go to moonstoneartscenter.org and find a way you can support us, because we're doing so much to bring this love of poetry to the city of Philadelphia. This is an instance tonight with G of the kind of poetry and the artistry that we have available. And it's only made available because Larry Robin, 40 years ago, started this thing, and it's been rolling and it's nonstop ever since. So you can go on to the website and you can find about different books and different activities. So thank you for looking in tonight, for watching, and once again, grateful to G for being here and sharing his work with us.